So, cases continue to rise. The outbreak continues unabated. The diagnostic real-time PCR test is shared to other states and territories and is approved for use in public health laboratory network. 4 months in, we have detections of the virus in all states of Australia, with many hundreds of severe cases in each state and now thousands of mild to moderate detections, with an enterovirus meningitis-like presentation. Publication of novel encephalitis-associated Bornavirus has just come out in the New England Journal of Medicine. Sharon Lewin is very excited. The Doherty Institute, as a one-stop shop, is working on many fronts simultaneously, keeping up with diagnostics, immunology investigations, and epidemiological investigations. On release of the New England Journal paper, the newspaper headlines say, Australian encephalitis virus spreads out of control across the country. Julian Savulescu, bioethicist, how does the non-medical population usually respond to alarming news headlines like this, or is it just a brief distraction from Facebook?
Yeah, it's really a sociological question rather than an ethical question, but I think there are three sort of contextual factors. The first one is there's an increasing distrust of authorities, institutions and governments. When I went to the UK in 1994, it was obvious to me there was a problem with BSE and I didn't eat meat. But 2 years on, and Germany had already banned it, 2 years on, the health minister, I think it was on the front page of the newspaper saying British beef was perfectly safe and feeding his child a hamburger. Now, there are the kind of outright lies about weapons of mass destruction and the Vietnam War, but there are also issues of making value judgments about safety and degree of epidemic. And maybe he genuinely thought British beef was safe. I didn't think it was safe, knowing the facts. So I think another aspect of today is people reject these paternalistic value judgments. They want to know what the facts are.
So no one's died in this case.
Yeah, but the second point is that they will find out what the facts are.
Yeah.
Because they will go to Twitter or they'll go to Google or they'll go to the internet and you won't be able to hide things. There's no hiding nowadays. And the third thing is that the internet, in my experience anyway, and I think the sort of change in topic of this hypothetical illustrates this, is that there is a kind of surveillance. People are watching what you're doing and there's a polarisation. And people, you'll find, conspiracy theorists, you'll find anti-vaxxers, you'll find any sort of ideology that has the energy and the motivation to inflame something. So it's a race to the bottom. And what you'll probably find in this case is this is an example of the living dead. I don't know, is that the Netflix program where everyone turns into zombies from a virus? That's what they will perceive. And you're not going to get away with blandly telling them that it's not that or that they're safe. So I think you've either got to really come clean with all the facts that you've got, or instead of maybe employing the communication strategy within the government, you need a really high-class PR firm, because the sort of days of, getting it past the public with some paternalism and some authority are over.
Yeah, okay. So now we come to the twist in the tale of the story. Kit Fairley from Melbourne Sexual Health Clinic. We're now 6 months in, and you've just recently become aware of an increased number attending the Melbourne Sexual Health Clinic and a good 3- to 4-fold rise in gonorrhea and syphilis cases. What happens in this instance, and who do you tell when there is a sudden rise in cases?
So it's fair to say cases have been rising for 20 years. So
3- to 4-fold rise over what's normal baseline
the current rise is principally in men, and it's men have sex with men, but we're now getting some wash over into heterosexuals as well. So the ratio of men to women is about the same. And so the thing that we would look at first is what's the pattern that's occurring in these individuals. What sex are they? What are their sexual preferences? What are the risk factors for this particular rise?
Yep. So DHS gets notified, as they normally do. Are there any public health campaigns at this point with a 3- to 4-fold rise?
So the public like to blame people. They like to blame people who are overweight because they eat too much, and they like to blame people who have sexually transmitted infections for having too many partners. And the facts are that people are wrong. People are not overweight because they eat too much, it's because they live in this obesogenic environment. And the same is true for sexually transmitted infections. The principal driver of gonorrhea and syphilis in populations is access to healthcare. It plummeted 99% when penicillin came around. And so access to healthcare and reducing the duration of an infection is the critical bit to try and bring the number of cases down, particularly for heterosexuals. So when you see high rates of STIs generally in populations, the blame is the government for poor government policy, not the individual for their partners.
Yeah. Brendan, as Chief Medical Officer of Australia, Sydney and other cities around Australia also report a similar increase in STIs over the same reporting period. Any response at federal level?
Well, again, if this is a highly significant change from the background, obviously we would want to activate and the mechanisms are the same mechanisms we activated before, and we would get CDNA to set up a rapid assessment team or a rapid incident panel and have a look at particularly the epidemiology. We'd really want to understand, as Kit said, where are these cases coming from? What's the epidemiology? Is there an escalation to the extent that we need to have two communicable diseases of national significance going at the one time? We haven't ever had one yet, and so we would then have an activation of our disease plan, and we'd work through again the chief health officers, get the data from the laboratories, and again think about a communication strategy. Now in STIs, we're very nuanced about communication strategies, and sometimes they're targeted to a specific population because, as Kit said, we don't want to get into a blame culture, so we would want to really understand fully the nature of this increase, and if it requires a national response, we would lead that. But again, as I said at the beginning, the local public health response is in the states and territories.
Okay. So Kit, analysing your attendance data at Melbourne Sexual Health, you're aware of the demographics of the clientele has changed. You have a lot more females attending the clinic, almost 50% in fact, and also heterosexual male clients are much more highly represented. Is there anything odd about this with the background of this increasing STIs, and what might it suggest?
So it's frankly an unmitigated disaster because since the discovery of penicillin, gonorrhea and syphilis have been largely well controlled in heterosexuals, and the reason is because those conditions are usually symptomatic. Countries with good access to healthcare, the US accepted, that people go somewhere, get treated, and the infections are terminated before they're transmitted. What's really worrying here is either that the partner number has changed, or that something's changed about the organism, which we would probably have realised, that makes it untreatable and therefore difficult to control.
Yeah. At this time, there is the National Family Lawyers Convention held in Sydney, where family lawyers come from all across the country, and surprisingly, they all complain that they are severely overworked and overbooked for the next year in advance, including court time, with overwhelming numbers of married couples splitting up and wanting rapid division of assets. News headlines go crazy, Twitter goes into hyperdrive, #DivorceMeNow, #AustraliaSplits. The next day, Jack and Jill and Adam and Steve all front up to the Royal Melbourne Hospital to see Irani. They all saw the news reports from the night before, they all had the virus, and they all say they felt completely different following recovery. They all want separate lives with no malice, no angst. They just want to be single. Jack and Jill, even with children, share their family duties. Adam and Steve, having fought for so long for marriage equality, have gone their separate ways. Catherine, Irani calls you with this information and also indicates that several of her friends have recently split up, surprisingly. Epidemiologically, the virus appears to cause a loss in human pair bonding ability. How do we prove it?
It would be difficult to prove epidemiologically, but But we could look for an association between infection and separation. So that would be involve comparing people who have been infected and not infected, and the outcomes of their marriage or their partnerships, and look to see whether people who have a serological history of infection.
So at the moment we don't have a serology test.
Well, or even a diagnosis. We have had a number of diagnoses. So there'd be a little bit of grey in that, because there might be some people who were not aware of their diagnosis and might be misclassified. But you know, as a start, that's what you'd look for.
Yep. Brendan, Catherine's just unpacked how we might establish those connections. First a nationwide novel virus outbreak, then a major STI outbreak, and now a threat to family and society, with a surge in singles wanting separate lives and separate living quarters. What might government do, and how would this be communicated to the public?
I think this is a trigger for the National Crisis Committee of Cabinet. So this is well beyond the Health Department. And again, we have plans aplenty in the Commonwealth, and so we would convene the Australian Government Crisis Coordination Committee and really try and bring in all of the data. Look, both the health effects, the social effects, the economic effects, and government would almost certainly set up a multi-department task force to try and deal with the principal thing, I think, would be the communication strategy. And I think, as Julian said, you know, the most important thing is to be honest with the public about what we do know, what we don't know, and what we're doing. And it's probably gone beyond how you can protect yourself, because presumably new cases of the virus may not be occurring now. We haven't got information on that, but I think it's then just looking at all of those social and economic aspects and working out in government what to do. And I can't predict how that would go, but it obviously would involve COAG. It would involve a very serious sort of coordinated crisis response.
Yep. Julian, do we have time to wait for the data to prove the link, or is speculating and taking action ahead of time before we know conclusively an option?
Yeah, it's a function of two things. The confidence you have in your belief, that is how much data you have, and the urgency of the situation. So the more urgent, the more you will act on lower confidence data. But I think in this case, you know, you've got an obligation to say what you do know and qualify the limits of its confidence. You've always got to, you can't second guess what people are going to do. Some people might choose to emigrate, or some people, you know, might choose to pretend they've got the virus and go for a divorce on that reason, sort of copycat. So I think you do need to inform them. But I think just in terms of national crisis, I think again we just don't want to jump too far ahead. It's important to recognise, as Kit said, that this sort of thing is already happening, but more slowly. Divorce has been increasing. Marriage rates have halved in the 20 to 24 year bracket in the last 10 years. People are having more sexual partners. So these aren't happening overnight, but they're happening slowly. And it's also important to look at non-human animals, because we share a lot with non-human animals. And there is actually a natural variation of this called the comparison between prairie voles and meadow voles. So prairie voles, these are small rat or mouse-like creatures. Prairie voles are monogamous. They care for, they have just one partner. And meadow voles are different species. The males are polygamous. And this is due to differences in activity in the nucleus accumbens. There's a higher vasopressin activity in the males of the monogamous variety, and a higher oxytocin activity in the polygamous males. In the monogamous males. So this virus could be affecting the oxytocin and vasopressin receptors, or the hormones, or the neurotransmitters. So we can look at, is this a worse situation to be, a monogamous or polygamous prairie voles? Well, a monogamous vole has greater dopaminergic activity, more pleasure from sex, cares more about its partner, and engages in more parenting activity. The polygamous vole has got a greater spatial memory. So you might want to start to look at these sorts of outcomes in the human variants. So you said that they're still looking after their children, but are they looking after them to the same degree? Are they getting as much pleasure from sex, or is it more of a kind of mechanical action? So I think you need to know more in order to evaluate these two different states.